Hello, respected viewers. Thanks for coming back to the channel. So it's George from Ireland here. Anyway, Donald Trump is definitely going to win the Republican nomination. I've been saying that for at least 6 months now. A year ago, I thought Ron DeSantis had a good chance, but Ron DeSantis, he pulled out a few days ago, who was falling further and further behind. The sort of more intelligent, courteous, younger Trump appealed to many of the same people, didn't offend so many people, blah, blah, blah. But he just somehow has failed to connect. And then Tim Scott has withdrawn. Vivek Ramaswamy, likewise, who tried to be, just an ethnic minority Trump, tried to Trump on some issues, wanting to surrender to Putin even more so than Trump does. So he and Tim Scott are just Trump toadies. Obviously, the only big question now is which one of them is Trump going to pick as a running mate. I reckon Tim Scott. Could be mistaken. There are other people who say, no, he'll never select anyone who sought the nomination against him. But anyway, he is acerbic towards Nikki Haley. So Nikki Haley is unusual for a Republican in as much as she's an Indian American by ethnicity. And very few women have got this far in trying to get the Republican nomination. What's her name? Carly Fiorina, way back in, was it 2016? She dropped out at a rather earlier stage. And as for the Democrats, there are two rather unserious candidates, one woman, one man, who are going for the nomination against Joe Biden. But it's a racing certainty that the Biden is going to get it. The big beasts of the Democratic Party have chosen to sit this one out. Why? Is that a party loyalty? I don't think so, because Biden is someone who provokes not very much fervor amongst the Democrats. They're unenthusiastic about him at best. But the Democrats, the other contenders, they recognize it's actually going to be quite a difficult year for the Democrats, more difficult than anyone anticipated. I was looking up the odds of the betting agency of a Trump victory this coming November, and one agency said it's going to be 44% chance he'd win. Another one gave him a 47% chance of winning. I think that's a bit high. I'm going more like 40%. I mean, I've raised it in the past few months. And then some people say, oh, pay no attention to opinion polls and other factors. No, you do pay attention to opinion polls. Obviously, they're not the only thing to look at. So Trump's going to win it, and he's pressurizing Nikki Haley to pull out, which she's obviously going to do. I don't think it's going to be tomorrow, but within a few weeks, definitely she will. And the way that'd be easy for the Republican Party, they can coalesce around a single candidate and just concentrate on that rather than all this internecine warfare. And the Democrats has largely happened already. So it's a rematch that very few people wanted. Because Donald Trump, way back in 2016, he had higher negative ratings than almost anybody else. And yes, there's some people who adored him, but there are people who abominated him. Whereas you take some other Republican contenders, like, say, Jeb Bush, or in more recent times, oh my God, I'm trying to think of that Cuban-American senator from Florida. The name will come back to me. Very few people loathed him. Not many people detested even Ron DeSantis. I don't know anyone who thinks that Nikki Haley is odious. And likewise, there are people who spat blood at the name of Hillary Clinton when she was a Democrats candidate. So they both have very high negative ratings. There are candidates about who plenty of people feel neutral, but Trump is not one of those. He's rather a Marmite person. You love him or hate him. There's not much in between. And likewise, although Biden doesn't provoke the same visceral loathing that Barack Obama did, that's probably got something to do with race as well. But it's maybe difficult to work up such loathing against someone who's an octogenarian, somewhat ineffectual, soft-spoken, all the rest of it. Although Obama was mostly soft-spoken, bore himself with a tremendous dignity and composure, despite the slings and arrows of outrageous false accusations that were hurled against him on a daily basis for over 8 years. So it's going to be those two geriatric candidates. Which one of them is going to die first? And that is a serious possibility that one of them will keel over from a heart attack before the first Tuesday in November, or even, having been elected, before 20th of January next year. And if not, if the person doesn't die, be incapacitated by a stroke that leaves the person paralyzed, a heart attack that leaves the person bedbound, so forth, have some sort of terminal cancer. So there is this wild card factor. So Biden is going to be the oldest president ever, if re-elected, serving on to the age of 86 and something like that. But Trump's probably even worse health, being morbidly obese. But not much of the fire has gone out of Trump's belly, despite the passage of years, despite Biden having, by almost any metric, a better presidency than Trump did. See, coronavirus came to an end under him, and all right, that's partly timing and partly what the doctors were up to, but there was an element of government policy in that as well. He's managed to keep Ukraine in the fight without leading to the Third World War. The economy has recovered really well, and he does not get enough credit for that. He's had a stimulus package, and so on. There've been no major disasters. There's been the odd shooting incident, which is largely down to the states, not the federal government. There's hardly been a government shutdown, things like that. Illegal immigration, yes, it's going on and always does. It's not that bad. The United States is making progress on green energy, on restoring its infrastructure, on almost every single issue. It's making headway, even if it's not dramatic. So he is a safe pair of hands, but he's on the bland side. And yeah, he just doesn't really fire people up the way that you want a president to do. And the Democrats don't seem to even contemplated jettisoning him, well, because Kamala Harris, with the obvious successor, had been the vice president. But her rating is even worse than his. So as partly the pullout from Afghanistan made his ratings tumble. Even though that was a popular decision, a high majority of Americans, opinion polls proved, wanted to withdraw from Afghanistan. And of course, it was Trump's plan. And your alternative is to carry on fighting there indefinitely. And when he was vice president under Obama, Joe Biden is said to believe that this was an exercise in futility. It was a forlorn hope. The only thing to do was to withdraw. And it was just a sunk loss fallacy to keep going on. Oh, well, if we pull out now, these 3,000 people have died for nothing. We've got to carry on. It could be another 3,000 and multiples of that. And there's nothing to suggest that he was mistaken in that supposition. So Trump is going to get the nomination. And it's very dispiriting that just knowing how foul he is, knowing how utterly mendacious and dishonorable he is, knowing how low down and cruel he is, how vicious he is, knowing about all his skullduggery, all his unethical behavior, with 91 criminal charges against him, virtually certain to be convicted of at least a few of them. A lot of Republicans still want him. But notice only ever a plurality of Republicans are going to vote for him. And the thing is, he didn't beat Nikki Haley even by that much, by about 10 percentage points. Considering he was a former president, you think he'd run away with it. So will there be some Republicans who won't vote for him? I think there will be a few. And even she didn't attack him too fiercely. She was quite a restrained campaigner, courteous, reasonable, and she's not detested by her Democratic opponents, and they can have a measure of unwilling respect for her because they see that she's a serious stateswoman, a politician who's actually trying to make things better for ordinary people and not interpersonal vendettas and expectorating the vicious insults of people who happen to not share her viewpoint on something. I mean, Trump is all egomania. It's not really about agreeing or disagreeing on a certain policy issue. He will espouse any policy that he reckons leads to his aggrandizement. He's fact-free, as Bill Clinton charitably said way back in about 2015. So, yeah, and Trump is going for it, and it's a very depressing scenario, and it's a very worrying one for the Ukrainians. But they dare not say that, because if Trump wins, he'll be even more vicious towards them. So we've got to pray for a Biden victory. I know Biden is very flawed, and I fundamentally disagree with him on some important moral issues, but he is an intelligent adult, and he is sane, unlike Trump. Anyway, thanks for watching the channel. Make sure you subscribe on Patreon, donate on PayPal. Goodbye, everyone.